Hey everyone, welcome back to the Try Swim Coach podcast. Thanks for joining. Today I wanted to announce the Global Swimming Summit. This is a free event that all takes place online, and I put this event together with Chris Ritter of Ritter Sports, and we gathered all the top people we could think of who could shed light on how to be a better open water swimmer. So the focus on this clinic or this summit is open water swimming. And it all starts today when I'm doing this podcast, which is Tuesday, October 25th. But you can join at any time this week or next week. So if you're hearing this anytime within a week after Tuesday the 25th, you're totally good to join, actually up to about 10 days after. So check it out. It's globalswimmingsummit.com. It's a free event, and you can watch all of the sessions just by going to that site and entering your email address, and you'll get the details on how to view it. So we have a ton of awesome guests like Gary Hall Sr., Brad Kearns, Leslie Patterson, Carlin Pipes, Jerry Rodriguez, and so many more. So again, the focus here is open water swimming. So you guys, you triathletes, you'll be able to get a ton out of this. And even if you're a coach, you can learn so much from this. I've learned a lot just from conducting some of these interviews and listening in on some of the ones that Chris has done. So this has just been a really cool event. And it's an event where people would pay a good chunk of money to see all these speakers, and usually it would be at one location, so you'd have to fly there and travel and all those costs. But this is all online, so you don't have to go anywhere, and so there's no denying the value here. So you can sign up free by going to globalswimmingsummit.com, and we also put together a highlight reel, so you get a taste of what this is all about here on this podcast. And so I'm going to play those clips. Enjoy that, and I'll be back on the other side.
That really depends on the conditions that you're in. I think if you're leading a race or if you're by yourself, you need to sight every couple of strokes. That might sound like overkill, but it's amazing how in a current situation you can get swept off course within a matter of seconds. So when I'm leading a race or when I'm by myself, I generally tend to sight and raise my head, just my eyes above the level of the water in front of me, probably every 3 to 4 strokes.
If you're a slower swimmer than your other peers, you have your tail between your legs when you arrive to the pool workout, and you slink over to the far lane, and your shoulders are slumped and your body language is inferior when you're around other swimmers, and all this kind of nonsense. And so what I advocate instead is to cultivate a pure motivation for what you're doing. So if we're talking about swimming, the most wonderful thing is, if you're a crappy swimmer, that you have more room for improvement than the Olympic champions we just watched.
2 coupling motions of freestyle are body rotation and arm recovery. In other words, arm coming up over the top of the water and entering in the water for another pull. Now, neither one of those motions, if I put you in the middle of the pool and I put a pool buoy strapped around your ankle, Kevin, put your hands at your side, and I say, start rotating as fast as you can, as hard as you can. You will never get to the other end of the pool. You are going nowhere doing that. You're a washing machine out there. And, you're creating a lot of energy. You're moving water, but it's all in a non-propulsive energy system. So why in the world would we want to do that? And how does that make us go faster? Mm-hmm. Well, it turns out, and because we live in an open system, that means everything, especially in the human body, where one arm is connected to the chest, is connected to the legs, all the motions we do are interconnected. That means that a motion of our arm will affect our body or affect our leg. And there are some motions we do that when we do them and we couple them with a force, they make the force greater than it would have been if we didn't do those motions.
Yeah, so, I think one of the most important things when you're racing and the anxiety pops in is, undoubtedly the negative thoughts pop in, the self-doubt and self-loathing. Why am I doing this? That whole hoopla. And to be honest, I think realizing that everybody feels that way, or at least 90% of people feel that way, automatically is like, okay, I don't feel so weak and strange and weird by feeling this way. And so one of the things that I will have my athletes do is I call it the 10 and 10. So they have to write out the 10 most common negative thoughts that pop into their head, like, oh my God, I feel fat. Of course, people are going to pass me, or I knew I could never be this good, or, whatever those things that pop into your head are, you write down the most sort of common 10, because they're going to come into your head at some point during the race. And then you do a countering. So you have a countering statement for that negative thought. And with that countering statement, you come up with a word association for it. And with that word association, probably for about maybe 3 or 4 of the biggest negative thoughts that you have, I'll put that countering word and I'll actually write it on my forearm or my hand.
I strongly vary my opinion from a lot of traditional Ironman training programs, which taper everything down a lot, at the end. And I think that the swimming should increase dramatically at the end, like in the taper, because your bike and run go down so much near the end to really freshen up, that you still need to get some aerobic work going. You still need movement. You still need, this action for your body to produce endorphins and things, so you're not getting real sluggish. And you gain feel for the water when you swim more frequently. So in the last 2 to 3 weeks, I actually like to see a pretty big increase in the amount of swimming people do, so that they really do feel good in the water when they get there.
Yeah, no. And do you think that's maybe why some people get frustrated, especially when they are trying to become better swimmers, is maybe they seem to skip over this step and they want to go to the propulsion, or even maybe they're thinking about their alignment a little bit and they kind of skip over this first step?
I don't know what most people think. I just know what I observe. And over the years, I've come up with these 3 things because I looked at the athletes, or non-athletes in this case, or people that don't have an extensive background in swimming. And I just looked at what are the things that are really preventing this person from really improving technically? Yeah. Not just, let's remove the training bucket for a moment, meaning the prescription of what they have to do while swimming, the complexion of a workout. Let's take that out and just look at technique integrity. What's really stopping them? And those are the 3 things that I've come up with. And this one is the framework. This is the bedrock of it, because you can't teach propulsion until you get this down. You can, but the propulsion is going to be inhibited by poor structure. Yeah. No, that's good. You mentioned like have a big engine. Put a big horsepower engine in a crane. Okay. Yeah. It weighs a lot, yes, but it's like a block. It's not aerodynamic. So you no matter how big that horsepower is, it's not going to get as much return as the car that's more aerodynamically structured, right? No, I think that's a great analogy. I haven't heard that one, Jerry, about the crane and the engine. That's good. Going back to the structure. I just made it up. And you mentioned the wiggling a lot. How have you best helped swimmers overcome that sense of just squirminess in the water and help to just kind of line up with the structure better and have, like you said, structural integrity? Chris, I think it's difficult to do, to eventually achieve, and I think it comes over time and over a lot of time, and there's a tremendous amount of awareness and presence that's needed, because even very good swimmers, as they get fatigued, you will see the structural integrity start breaking down. So once we've achieved it, it's awareness and presence to maintain it. Now, how we achieve it, there are a number of ways. One of the things that we do is we introduce vertical kicking.
That is swimming. So you float, relax, find your balance, turn everything off, and then simply paddle and the sweeten the deal is on your back, you have a very expensive drink of your choice that you don't want to spill. And so you're trying to deliver that drink to the other side, but back to being relaxed. I think we get barge-like swimming when people are tight and flat. You got to be relaxed and gently rocking from side to side, but not so much that you knock that drink off. Yeah, and I think people, for whatever reason, have it stuck in their mind that swimming has to be hard, right? Like, I should be out of breath. I should be trying hard. Look, they're swimming so fast, in the Olympics. Like, I need to be trying. But it's really the opposite, right? Like, it should feel so easy. Like they said, hey, is this a drill? No, that's swimming. Now you're balanced, and it should feel like just a flow in the water. And you can't ever fight the water. You're not going to win. Right. And I think people do go after, especially a lot of coaches, they zero in on drag, and that drag is your number one enemy. Well, they actually are, then they're telling you that you need to be skinnier so you create less drag. Well, now you've just created a skinny boat that's not going anywhere. As a matter of fact, it's capsized. You know, a perfect example is like those really, really lightweight sculls or canoes that are 22 inches wide. You know, it's going to take somebody a long time to master the balance of that thing before they can even make it go. And so if we find our balance, then we're going to be able to apply a more relaxed stroke and apply power. So another great analogy is an outrigger canoe. So you have a Hawaiian outrigger canoe. You have 6 to 8 very large Hawaiians potentially in that canoe. It's a very skinny canoe. It's only about as wide as, you know, a foot and 2 feet or so. What keeps that canoe from tipping over is the what's called the ama, which is also the outrigger, right?
Yeah.
So that outrigger is your lead arm holding a glide out a little bit wider. The boat is you, and the paddlers are your pulling arm. So you are thinking, keep it wide and ride the glide on the lead arm, keep the boat from tipping over, and you can apply a lot of power and a high elbow catch to that pole. But take the outrigger off, and now you got a lot of people trying to keep the balance of the boat and very little energy moving forward. And that's a big one. And like I said, the more you lose your balance, the more you're going to send out counterbalance, and that's your feet. And if your feet start getting into the action in a big scissor kick, then you're talking about a massive amount of drag that will just really waste your energy and make you go slower. So I can guarantee you that this stroke is not only faster, but it's actually easier because you're doing fewer things that make you slow down. And if we go back to the catch, all those things are going to put you in a position to set up a high elbow catch. Enter wider, some over a core reef, and boom, there it is. Move your hand 4 inches inside, try and set up that high elbow catch. Nope, you're going to go straight down. So sabotage, what's sabotaging your catch? Those are the things.
I mean, we've hardly even talked about recovery, but the recovery is so important. What adaptations you're trying to make for your body, and so if you don't take that seriously and just focus on the volume, I think it's going to lead you down a path of frequent injuries. And I do see those people quite often who can't quite get that concept, and it's filling in their logbook of what they did that day and what they're supposed to do that day, and having that be the priority. Those are the people that I find that oftentimes tend to experience way more injuries.
No, I think that's a great point in terms of if they're being ruled by their training program versus adapting it. So if you're saying, okay, I got to get a 3,000 meter swim in today, no matter what, and other people are, okay, I'm supposed to, but man, my shoulders, maybe kind of creeping up on me, or like you said, they didn't get a lot of sleep. I need to adapt. Like you said, you're a triathlete. You've trained for this as well. Is that just, how do you get into that mindset where you can be a little bit more adaptable, but not feel like you're giving up? Because I think that's where people get stuck is, well, I don't want to be soft, or, I'm supposed to do this. A lot of A-type personalities out there trying to get it done. How do you strike that balance between that?
I think it comes through experience, and it comes through, having things not necessarily be ideal in terms of like hitting all your metrics, but then still saying, you know what, I'm going to just get out there and do it. And then surprising yourself that, man, actually I did better than I thought. And maybe I did need to focus on rest. The last Ironman that I did, our son was 8. He was born 8 weeks before the race. So
you're getting lots of sleep.
I was like right when I was supposed to be doing my highest volume training. And so, and he wasn't sleeping very well those first 4 weeks. And so I literally prioritized getting more sleep and more training. And so I had like the longest taper I've ever had in my life. And I had the best race that I've ever had. And it just highlighted to me that, sometimes the priority is, the recovery, the sleep. And especially if you're a lifelong athlete and you have those years and years of volume built up, I think that, your body, when you get to that race day, it knows what it needs to do. And so that was a huge lesson for me, because I was one of those people who would kind of sacrifice everything. If I knew I was going to have a busy day, I'd get 4 or 5 hours of sleep, wake up early, try to get the workout in before I would work. And then I just started to kind of run down that road of, chronic fatigue and just not recovering properly. So part of my experience is, personal. I just know that that's not the best route. And so convincing people of that is hard. I think they need to have that firsthand experience of, trying it. So I would say if you feel like you keep banging your head against the wall and you're like, man, why am I constantly getting injured? Try taking a break to focus more on, or give yourself the slack to be able to, skip workouts if you need to recover, if that seems to be the best call for that day, and, see if it affects your performance.
Yeah.
It's very anecdotal, but that's been my experience.
And that is the truth, because if you neglect the swim, then it doesn't matter. We don't ever run fresh in a triathlon. We've always got some layer of fatigue, right? Because we've had the swim and the bike. We want to lessen that fatigue as much as possible, and we can do that with proper swim prescription. And it doesn't really matter. Like if you get faster, awesome. If you don't, I wouldn't worry so much, because I know you're going to get faster in the end of your race result, which is where ultimately what matters.
Yeah, no, I want to go back and hit a couple things. You had some really good gems there I think people might have glossed over. But with the body line and using that pool buoy, I think that is so important, because sometimes people don't feel what they really should be feeling. You know what I mean? Like they never feel like, oh, I should feel up on top of the water and not like my legs dragging down the whole time that I'm swimming. And yes, when you're in the wetsuit, obviously that helps, but you're not going to be swimming in the wetsuit day in and day out. And if you, with just your body and your suit, can get up higher on the water, well, the wetsuit's going to make it even more efficient when it comes to race day.
Absolutely. I think a lot of the times, swimming is such a beautiful thing that gives us instantaneous feedback. Just people aren't listening to it. Right?
That's good.
And I think people go out way too fast, which then becomes a pacing problem come race day. But, it's like, hey, I guarantee most people were like, they swim their first 100 or 200 and they're like, wow, that feels good. It feels really easy. And look at the speed I'm at. And then everything slows down from then. And it's like, okay, well, so we need to actually take time and warm up effectively, and do the right things and build it into the swim prescription. But understand, every time the arm enters the water, we get feedback. If I'm feeling it in the front of my shoulder, it really just says, hey, I've dropped my elbow. And everyone talks about this high elbow position. But the unfortunate thing is most people erroneously think it's all about the high elbow above the water.
Right.
No, it's high elbow under the water. Right. And the reason that I like some athletes, especially early on, to use a bigger pool buoy, or, maybe these new wetsuit shorts, which are awesome because they don't impact the kick so much, is because it takes the thinking of their body position right now out of the picture, and they can focus on better, arm swim mechanics. Is the arm entering where it should? We have a channel on either side that we want to stay within, and we get that better swim mechanics when we can focus on it. Add the snorkel, and then you take the breathing aspect out of it, and they can intimately focus on exactly what they need to do rather than being off with the pixies. And good old Karate Kid, wax on, wax off. We do that enough, and we improve our swimming.
We need specific fuel at specific times. So we want to take a look at, okay, what are you doing? How long are you doing it for? What is the intensity of training? And does that change day to day, right? So you're going to always look at pretty much duration, time, and intensity to consider how your nutrition changes, how your nutrition needs will change throughout training.
That makes sense. And then how does it, are we worried about the event that we're training for at this point, or is it more you should be focused on like a block of training in terms of how you're eating? Because in some sense, you have to practice what you're going to do for the event, right? But where do you kind of draw that line for people of, okay, you should just focus on, if you have a really hard training week, you're going to maybe eat slightly differently, then that may be a little bit different than your event.
Yeah, and so it's always important to keep the event in the back of your mind, especially if you need to fuel during the event. And we can talk a little bit more about that specifically, but it's always important to train with your nutrition for a specific event. And obviously if your training varies, then your food choices are going to vary. And sometimes it doesn't vary drastically, but sometimes it does. If you're training really light on, if you're alternating weeks, light week, hard week, then yeah, your nutrition needs are going to change. They're going to be less on those lighter times and more during those more high intensity times. So that's the first piece. But then you always, like I said, you want to keep in mind that event. So if it's an event where you are going to need to fuel during the event, then you have to think about that as well, because that's something you're going to want to start to incorporate, because you have to practice with that too. It's just like the training piece, right? You're not going to be able to fuel during an event if you have no clue how to do it, and you have no clue what to eat, and you have no clue if it's going to actually work for you.
No, I think that's a great point. And I wonder if, like you said, power and skill, if that's where a lot of people maybe kind of skip over and just think, okay, I just got to have this, a big aerobic tank or engine as I can, and not necessarily think about the power and the skill. Why is that important for someone, like you said, Alex, who's swimming 25K? Why does he need to have power or even worry about the skill? It should just be he's swimming for quite a few hours out there.
For sure. I think that, and this is for any swimmer. This is for the 6-year-old learning to swim. This is for the 50-year-old master swimmer who's getting into triathlons. Efficiency is the key that's going to get you into the door, and it's a multiplier. When you can tweak your skill work and you can tweak the way that you shape your body to be more efficient, and what you're doing in the water is taking less energy away from going forward and moving forward, then you have a pattern that you're establishing that's going to make you more efficient. And in a 5K, even in a 1K, saving that efficiency, your lactic acid's not going to go through the roof at the beginning of the race. You're going to have more in the tank to be able to spread out throughout the race. You're also going to have the ability to change gears and change speeds. So it's learning to move efficiently through the medium, through water. That's the essential building block where everything launches off of.
It almost sounds like kind of two parts of the equation there. So people are always thinking maybe they're focused on the aerobic part, but you're also saying, well, if you focus on the other part, especially the skill part, you won't need as much energy. Yeah. So then whatever you have is going to be magnified as a result of that.
I would agree with that. I think the other thing about aerobic swimming, you can always come to that. But if you're training the aerobic side of things without a strong skill set, then you're constantly reinforcing habits that might not be great habits. And when you get into a race environment, you're going to go to those things that have been branded in, and those are going to be things that you're doing when your heart rate's raced. So if you can focus on the skill and focus on the efficiency. We've been in school here for about 8 weeks, and I don't think there's been a workout that we've done yet that you could ask my athletes about in those distance lanes that we even spent about 40-45 minutes on skill work first.
Oh, wow.
We're really hammering home our skills at this point in the season, what we're doing in terms of our stroke and shaping our body and the aquatic line. And we're slowly building that aerobic tank and that reservoir. But you can be patient with it, and you can attack that. But the skill work is essential.
All right. So again, that's just a taste of what you'll get in the event. Again, it's globalswimmingsummit.com. And remember, this starts on Tuesday, the 25th. But the event goes on for the next 2 weeks. So you can get all of this for free by going and signing up on the site there, just giving your email address. And this is a top list of coaches and athletes that are on the agenda. And so we really put a lot of thought and effort into getting the right people here for the audience. So if everyone that listens to this podcast was able to get this knowledge, that would make me very happy. And I think that it'll help you whether you're training for a triathlon or maybe a swim next year. This will really be some great info, and you can get it for free, so there's nothing to lose. I hope to see you there, and we'll have another podcast up for you soon. Thanks for listening, and have a great week of training. All the best.